All right, so first thing we need to know, did you ever get a referral when you were in school as a middle schooler or a high schooler?
Like to the office?
Yeah.
No, I was pretty shy and scared.
So, that's good. Anybody raise your hand if you've never been written up before? Okay, so you're part of that crowd. That's good.
Good job.
And if you have been written up, guess what? Ask Mr. Davis if he's ever been written up.
Have you?
I was a class clown, but
Are you trying to make an example out of her?
no. I'm just saying there's different ways you can succeed. You can be a fool sometimes, or you can be shy and well behaved all the time.
Well, and the rules were very different when I was in school too. So there's a lot of things that I think we probably got away with that maybe you all can't today. So.
Yeah, and where did you grow up? So yeah, there's the next question. So was it around here or was it somewhere else?
It was not here. I grew up in upstate New York, about 100 miles north of the city, in a very New York City. It's not a New York State is not one big city, which is something that a lot of people think about. But I grew up in a very small town, which is still a very small town, one light. Literally in the center of town. So I grew up in small town America in upstate New York. Lived there all my life.
Okay.
Most of my young life.
And when did you leave there?
I left there when I went to college, and then got married pretty much right out of college. And I married a person in the military. So I had the great opportunity of living all over the world. And if I can say anything to you right now about traveling and getting to know other cultures, do it. Do it. There's a lot outside of, it doesn't mean that you don't have Winchester as your home base, but definitely explore this great world of ours. So, lived all over, moved about 14 times.
What was your favorite place that you lived?
Italy. Yes,
That's
lived
fun.
there for 4 years. Yeah.
Was it Sigonella, Naples, or was it a different?
It was Naples.
Okay.
And Sigonella is in Sicily, and we were stationed at NATO headquarters. So my husband then was in the Army, but when you're at NATO, you're not working for the Army, you're working for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So
Bunch
it
of
was
different countries.
bunch of different countries. So we got to be with people from all over the world, all over Europe, all over the United States, all the different services. It was a wonderful experience.
And from the other side of that, I mean, I've told you all that before. When I got out of high school, I really knew that I wasn't ready to be a student. So I joined the Navy, and that was a way for me to see the world. It kind of matured me a little bit. And that way, when I started taking college courses when I was 20, I actually cared. So I was actually a good student, and I cared about it because I had seen a little bit more of the world. So what she said, get out. Don't stay in Winchester. I mean, can for a little while, but get out, get some perspective, do something different. That's huge.
And right out of high school, I was like Mr. Davis. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't have any direction really. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I did go 2 years. I went to a 2-year school until I figured out. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do, but yeah, no rules. It's your life.
And and the next question, how does it feel to be back in a school? Because when was the last time you were in a school?
Well, I have grandkids in school, so I periodic their schools, but I haven't actually. I was a little intimidated, honestly. Coming into a classroom of 8th graders, yikes.
Yeah, they'll eat you alive if you let them, but
Yeah.
I've got them trained pretty well so far. That's why I didn't have you come in the first month. I got to train them first.
Oh, gotcha. Well, and coming in to be with Mr. Davis's class, I mean, I have had a great opportunity to get to know him a little bit by him coming into my shop. So I wasn't as scared. Well, maybe I should have been more scared.
Yeah, true. So, and yeah, going back to how I even know Lanita. So when I was in college, I went to Shenandoah University right here in Winchester. So that's what brought me to Winchester, because I'm not from Winchester. And I, being the good student that I became, I didn't really like studying at home, okay? Because home is kind of boring. I have to have a little distraction. I like people. So a coffee shop was a perfect place for me to kind of socialize and get work done at the same time. So Lanita's shop opened up at about the time when I was in school, and I used her shop as a place to study and get to know her and some other people that work there. And also the Daily Grind, which I had mentioned to you, Maya, because you live over there by it, that old the Royalicious or whatever. But that was another spot for me to really become a good student. So yeah, and then I also, my daughter, when she was born, Lanita actually gave that little owl right there that I brought in. This owl, it's a bank, okay? So that was a big deal because, you know, I'm just a guy with a child and she's a business owner, and for her to give me something like that, that was a big deal to me. And it goes back to community, okay? Because that kind of connection, when you give something to somebody and you respect them and things like that, it goes a long way. So I think that's half the reason why her business has been as successful as it is.
Thank you.
But yeah, so that's a little backstory, right? What are your fondest memories of middle and high school? When you think back, what are the things that are highlighted and positive?
For me, probably a little on the romantic side was my friends, meaning my friends. You know, I think I miss my friends the most. I miss that camaraderie, those relationships that you build when you're in middle school, especially if you all are going to continue through high school together. You're building lifelong relationships right now. So for me, school was that, I mean, I was an okay student, but school was that place where we got to see our friends, we got to talk, we played sports together, you know, we ate together, we socialized together. So it was about building, for me, my fondest memories were building those relationships. And I still have some teachers that I keep in touch with a little bit too. So they were pivotal points in my life, saying just the right thing at just the right time. So it wasn't so much about what I was learning. If I went back, I would probably have studied harder, paid more attention to what I was learning. But for me, my fondest memories are those relationships that we build in school.
Yeah, and I think back, I mean, we lose touch with our best friends and stuff like that. I mean, I have them on Facebook, and it's really not the same. You don't, I mean, there are, like my wife, she's still best friends with somebody she went to school with. But truth be told, most people, it's literally left after high school. You'll keep in touch, but you don't have that close-knit relationship. So cherish it. And those of you that do have the special relationships with people that extend through your lifetime, that's a beautiful thing. So.
Yeah. I was very emotional when I graduated from high school too. I can remember my graduation day very clearly and being very emotional because I was afraid of leaving that. I found that security, that safety in my school too. So, and one of my teachers just came up to me on graduation day and said, just wait, there's a lot more out there. You know, you can maintain these things that you've gotten here in your younger years, but there's lots more to come. So, and that's always stuck with me.
Amen. Yep. All right. So, what was your first job?
My first job was in an ice cream shop. It was called the Tempty Freeze.
The Tempty Freeze.
Yeah.
There we go.
And I rode my bike. I had to ride my bike too, because I didn't have, you know, a car. I rode my bike to school, and I babysat. So that was my first
How old were
job.
you?
As soon as I was old enough to work, so 16.
Okay.
I started babysitting when I was in 6th grade, but got my first job as soon as I was old enough to get my first job, and that was at about 16. So yeah, and then my first real job after college was working as an administrative assistant in an attorney's office.
So lawyers. All right. But yeah, how long did you do that? Did you work in a law office?
I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved to a medical office, which I really enjoyed more.
Yeah. So you didn't fall in love with the lawyer life?
No, no, pretty stressful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, walk us through like the rest of your work experiences. So we started out at your ice cream shop, babysitter first, ice cream shop. Then what happened after that?
So after I worked for a couple of years before I had children, I worked as an administrative assistant. Because we were moving, I started in an attorney's office, went to a medical office, and I could move that career, right? But then after 4 or 5 years of being married, I started a family. We started a family. And I was very fortunate, I believe, to be able to stay home with my kids. So I was a stay-at-home mom, basically. But don't let anybody tell you that that's not work, because that is a big job. And I did a lot of volunteer work. So a piece of advice to you as well, if you volunteer in your, as you're developing your career, keep track of that, because that is legitimate work time. You might not be getting paid for it, but you are definitely working. Now, I worked I reorganized a food locker at one of the Army posts. I worked in their medical offices. I volunteered at Red Cross, helped with the blood drive, volunteered in the schools, running the book fairs, and volunteering in the library. Always volunteered at my church, teaching CCD and being a lay minister. So there were a lot. I ran an international charity bazaar over in Italy, which I absolutely loved. So all of these things that you do as volunteers, even now, you are all old enough to volunteer in your community. Keep track of those events that you volunteer at, because you're building a resume. All of what you do is going to translate into a skill or something that can potentially get you a job later on. So I volunteered when we moved from Italy to here. My son was in 8th grade, right here at Daniel Morgan, although it was not the school that it is today. It was half this size, I think. And I had a daughter in college and a daughter in high school. So then I went back to work, and I worked at a medical office for a few years, and then I started getting the itch. So I want to interject this today. Follow your heart, guys. If your heart is telling you to do something, follow that. So I waited. And that's when after working for a few years in a medical office here in Winchester, I felt like I wasn't going to go anywhere else. Career-wise, here I am working as an administrative assistant. What else can I do with this? That's when I decided that I would step outside my comfort zone and face my fears. I worked at Daily Grind in the corporate office, and then was laid off when the economy was very bad. And I know you're in a civics class, so you're learning about our economy and community and all that stuff. So the economy was bad, I was laid off, and that's when I decided to face my fears and follow my heart and have my own store. And then the rest is history. So
it's kind of like an apprenticeship model where you learned the trade through another employer, took your skills and paid attention the whole time you were working there, and that's kind of was the foundation for you being able to start your coffee shop.
Yes, learned a lot from working at the corporate office, and really was able to take that with me. Yeah.
And what's funny too, and I just know this because I remember I used to study, and when I was in college I used to do my work in her shop. There was a worker there named Nathan Rhodes, and he kind of did the same thing with you, where he learned on the job working at her shop at the Espresso Bar. And now you've probably seen it. It's called Hopscotch Coffee, that little coffee shop with the records and all that right down by Hanley. So when you go to Hanley High School, you will see a coffee shop on that road right there. And so she even inspired somebody else to start something. And I think it's beautiful that both have been able to exist and prosper. So your coffee shop is great and a beautiful place to go, and so is his. And it's information sharing, and it's an inspiration. So that's, whenever you work, pay attention, because you never know when you can take those skills and put it into your own business. And even with my coin stuff, I go back to a shop in Berryville. There was a coin shop, and the guy's name was Todd Saunders. And he was very open with me with his time. I would sit in there on Saturdays and Sundays, and he let me know he was very giving with his knowledge. And so I used everything I learned with him to start my own business 11 years ago. And so it's huge. So whatever you do, even starting out, pay attention.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next question. What's your favorite part about living in Winchester?
That's a tough question. I think community, probably. Here we go, back to community, right? I think this is a very community-oriented community that supports community. I know I keep repeating that, if that makes sense.
It's layered.
Okay, it's layered, but we always use the term in small business too, local supports local, right? And I think we have that here in Winchester. I think our Winchester is doing a great job paying attention to what people need, what people want, and they're still maintaining that very nice community atmosphere here. So hopefully we can maintain that. I think that's what I like most about Winchester is, the schools are a concern of City Council. The housing is a concern of City Council. So people are listening.
They care.
They care. They care about everybody in the community. So I think that's probably the most impressive thing to me.
Who in here has been to the walking mall where you can walk in all the shops? Okay. So when I moved here in 2007, right when I started at Shenandoah, it was late 2006. That walking mall was gravel and patchwork and dirt. It was it wasn't a beautiful place, okay? But within those next few years, a total investment of money and time went into making that a decent place. And I would have to say that Lanita has definitely been part of that because her business didn't fold, right? It's been around for more than 10 years, so it's consistent. Because in business, it's not always guaranteed. If you don't manage it well, you can go bankrupt and you can fail. So that's huge in itself.
Yeah, and Mr. Davis is right. When I moved here too, and I moved here in 1999, the walking mall was not a safe place to be, but people weren't really paying it. Well, that's how I was given the impression it's not a safe place to be. But my experience down there has said that this community is listening and they're making it not only a safe place, but a place where they want, let's make this our focal point, right? This is where we start in Winchester. They care, yeah.
Okay, so when was the first time that you drank coffee, that you consumed coffee? Because some kids in here probably never had, who in here has never had coffee before? Okay. The brave ones have sipped it at least. But,
yeah, and that is very interesting to me because your generation is a Starbucks generation, right? My daughter was a middle school teacher in Loudoun County, and her students, 6th graders, coming in with their, Starbucks lattes in the morning. So I'm surprised that some of you haven't drunk coffee. Gosh, I can't remember when I had my first cup of coffee, but I remember my parents, always had a cup of coffee right after dinner, and always in the morning. But I tell you, my passion for coffee grew with the experience that I had in Italy. I had got a real appreciation for an espresso beverage. So it is a product that it's our legal, if I can say it
drug.
In here, it's our legal drug, right? It's caffeine, it's our legal addiction, it's comfort, it can be sweet, it's hot, it can be cold, and it brings people together, You guys ought to all come in, sit at the table, and we'll have a conversation over a cup of coffee.
You heard it. She's a person of her word. So, yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned Italy and that being your inspiration, because the guy who invented Starbucks, Howard Schultz, that was where he found his inspiration to start Starbucks, because he was over in Italy and he was like, these coffee houses, people love these things and they're great. And even if you go back to the 1700s, 1600s, the coffee house used to be where everybody did their business. So the merchants would all come, all of the locals would come and do business there. So coffee houses were very much part of that culture. So yeah, that's interesting. You and Howard Schultz of Starbucks have the same inspiration.
Yeah, and Mr. Davis even brought me a Starbucks book, okay, when I first opened. And I thought, really? You want me to put this in here?
Go corporate. Why not?
But Starbucks also has, and I get back to community, I know I keep repeating that, but Howard Schultz, his motto is, it's not about serving a cup of coffee, it's about serving a person a cup of coffee. It's about serving people coffee. And that's what it's about for me too.
And you know, I spent 7 years working for Starbucks. So, and I view working at that coffee shop and teaching in the same, it's kind of the same vibe, because you are trying to please people and trying to make them just better, just through engagement. And the relationships even that I developed while working at that coffee shop in Winchester at Starbucks, a lot of them I still know those people. So that was a great time for me. But if you're gonna work, go work at the Espresso Bar. But that leads
and
us
I am hiring right now.
So yeah, tell me what it is you look for when you're hiring a barista. So, and how young is the youngest you've ever hired? Too?
17
Okay.
is the youngest I've ever hired. I have never, you know, you can get work papers if you work younger than that, or if you work for your family, you can certainly work younger than that. I have conversations. I don't interview. If I can have a conversation with a person and we've hit it off and they're available, I usually give them a try. You know, we just sit down and have a conversation. So if that conversation is really comfortable, I know that that person is going to fit in with the family of employees we have, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But that's what I look for. What, you know, I ask you what your interests are. Actually, the first question I ask you is, do you like coffee? Because you can't sell something that you don't like, right?
It's true.
So I ask them if they like coffee, and then we have a conversation. And I check the flow of that conversation before I hire somebody.
And then on the other side of that, have you ever fired anyone, and why?
Yes, I have, and it's a very difficult thing to do. I have fired people for, to be blunt, stealing from me. I have fired people for poor work ethics.
For instance, like not showing up when they're supposed to.
Yeah, there's a saying in the theater world. If you're 10 minutes early, you are on time. If you are on time, you are late. If you are late, you are fired. So I have had people that show up or don't show up. Excuse me. I knew this was gonna happen.
No, that's okay. You're good. You've been talking a lot, so take a break. And yeah, guys, that's why we preach it too about attendance. Should you really have to be rewarded for showing up to help yourself? Because think about it, if we're coming to school every day, that's our job. Because we want to get better. And even in college, can't say that it was in high school for me, but in college, I would feel sick to my stomach if I missed any classes, because I felt like I was truly missing out on something. And I got lucky because I joined the Navy, right? So if you did not show up on time in the Navy, there were serious consequences. So that kept me in check and gave me that whole be there early thing. I wanted to be 15 minutes early. Even with here at the schoolhouse, I want to be here at least an hour before school starts, because I feel like if I don't have everything prepared and ready, then I'm chasing my whole day. And I want to feel like I'm locked in and ready to go. So yeah, that's a huge thing. Show up early for your jobs, impress your employers.
Yeah. You also have, in my opinion, and this is a big thing today, work ethic. okay, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to your owner, to your coworkers, to your team. And think about it like that. If you are on a baseball team, if you are on the field hockey team, and you are the goalie and you're a no-show, you're letting your team down. You have an obligation and a responsibility to that team. That's how I look at, if you're hired to do a job, you're accepting the responsibility to show up and to do the work while you're there, and you're getting paid for it.
We're going back to economics. You guys are part of that money machine, or our economic machine, right? So when you don't show up, our economy isn't as good. So you matter. You literally matter. Even showing up here in school, you're adding those skills that are going to help you when you graduate. So you're part of our economy. You're a vital part of it. So, and you look around, you want everybody to be on the same page.
Yeah, and really keep that in mind, because you do matter. That is huge. Even if you're one of 100, you're one of 100. You matter. No matter what your role is, what you do matters. It makes a difference.
The longer I live, the more I realize it.
Yeah.
What has helped you get through personal setbacks and setbacks in the business? Like when times are tough, what has really been your go-to to help the stress and get through, besides coffee?
Yeah, that's a really tough question, because there's a lot of different stresses that you experience, and not just in self-employment, but in anything that you do. I think I try to just hit it head on. Okay, what's the issue? And I know that we are all encouraged to look to our future, but I am at the point, maybe it's because of my age too, it's a one day at a time for me.
Yeah.
Let's tackle this day. Let's get through this day.
That is.
When I started my business, I was very, very careful with my. Are you getting a note from the office?
He's coming back. He's tested this morning.
Thank you for being here.
Oh.
I'm Jason, superintendent. So, Jared, thanks for inviting
Yeah,
me.
seriously, thank you for showing up.
You
That
guys
means a lot.
listening, paying attention? Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
They're all going to open up their own coffee shop tomorrow.
There you go. We'll have a dearth of coffee shop. No, we won't have a dearth.
We'll
I
put one
tell you
right
what, you guys can line up and take over when I'm ready to
That's right.
step down.
There it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're important. All right. So, what's your advice to I know you tapped into a little piece of advice, but what's one piece of advice that you would give these 8th graders if you were one of them right now?
Okay, if I could go back to 8th grade and be sitting right there at the desk on the other side here, I would say to you, study, okay? Study, do the work, but pay attention also to how it affects you personally. Like what you're studying today, is this something that you're interested in? Put your heart and your mind into it, because this life, you get one go around. And I would always tell my kids, do what you want to do in your life. Don't let anybody else, there's going to be a lot of influencers in your life, and pay attention to them, right? Like Mr. Davis and I did. Pay attention to them, but pay attention to what your heart and your mind are saying to you. Study hard and follow those intentions. Because and I've always told my kids too, if you really want to try something, if you really want to go to a certain college, you really want to try a certain field, you want to be on a certain team, go for it. Go for it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and now it doesn't work out, and you can change your direction. Okay? And then you'll eventually get to, yes, this is what I want to do in my life. You'll know that if you follow your heart and there's going to be a lot of people that tell you this is what you should do. And maybe that's what you'll end up doing. But in my opinion, listen to yourself. you know, this is what you want to do, try it. Try it.
And I can attest to the same thing. So the reason why I'm still a teacher is my heart, okay? Because of course I have the thoughts in my brain of, man, you could literally just go buy and sell coins and that could be your career. You don't even have to worry about dealing with the stress of being a teacher, okay? Or I could jump to assistant principal, right? Since I'm certified for that, that's another avenue I could go toward. But my heart is teaching. Like, I can't break away from that. I would literally feel like my heart is broken if I stopped teaching. So that's what keeps me here, okay? So yeah, listen to yourself. Listen to your heart, because it really does matter. You don't want to chase money or whatever it be. You want to go with your heart.
Yeah, and money is important to live. We all know that. But it's not the answer to everything, right?
No.
You know, it's not gonna make you happy. If that's the only reason that you're doing something. So.
Yep, you'll learn.
Yeah.
If you try it, you'll learn. All right, let's open this up, because some of you kids have a card in your hand, and it's time for you to ask the question. So, since Eliza's throwing her hand up first, have at it.
What is your biggest regret in the coffee shop? Example, like you got something and it's not selling as much as you would like it to.
What is my biggest purchase that I?
Or yeah, something like that.
Well, pastries too, didn't you choose a few different types
Yeah,
of, or-
you know, we've done it. Running your own business is a trial and error, I would say. So there's been a few things that I thought maybe were a good purchase. Okay, so when I first opened, I bought, as my retail, this is a good example, as my retail more expensive items, like $100 grinder. And, but I didn't know my community yet, I think. You know, some of the flavored drinks that we, you know, wanted to eliminate. But when I got to know my customer base, I figured out that, oh, maybe that's not such a good idea. You know, we're ending up throwing it away. So I would say some of my more expensive retail, it just wasn't selling, you know, so that can be a waste of money. And then some of the products that we've tried that just people in Winchester don't like. So you got to know, if you're going to run a shop like I'm running, like a retail shop, you got to know your customer base. You got to get to know your customer base. Listen to them. Yeah.
And in other words, it can't be everything you want. You have to listen. It's like being a teacher. I don't try to get feedback from you guys all the time because it might hurt my feelings, but I do pick up on things. I can tell if kids don't like certain activities, and I have to scrap that. In other words, I won't do it next year if I know that the kids really didn't like it. So even with my assignments, I'm constantly slash and burn. What doesn't work, forget it, okay? Because I don't want kids to be bored to death. So you got to know your customers, aka students too, in this environment. So.
Yeah, and on that note too, you know, we've had a lot of the same products. I've had mine shop for about 12 and a half years now, and some of the products have never changed. And people continue to come back. You know, when you go to McDonald's, you know what you want, right? You're not going to get any different French fries. You're not going to get a different burger, because it's what people want. It's what they get used to. So.
Good.
And a more generic question: do you like your job?
I do. I really do. I can be having a really bad start to the day, just emotionally sometimes, and I go into my shop and I start talking to people and doing my job, and it changes my mood completely. I really love what I do, and I think that's why more than anything I'm telling you guys to follow your heart. It took me a long time to get to this point. You know, I did a lot of different things. So it's my happy place. Mm-hmm.
And that's huge. Like even in this profession, because I might have a student who really makes my life difficult one period, and then the next I have a type of class where I feel like I got smarter because everybody's like engaged. So even in the schoolhouse, it's continual. Sometimes I'm let down, but I'm boosted back up by something else. And you really do. You have to love what you're doing or you'll quit. And you see that all the time with teachers. That's why they say teachers move around a lot and some of them quit. It's because they don't truly love it at the bottom of it. They're just doing the job. And if you want to get through a stressful job, you have to love it.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Exactly.
So, next question. Who's up? Chuck.
Did you design your shop?
Yes, me and 2 other people actually. I walked into a shell. There was nothing in the shop. The building had just been renovated. And we literally just stood in the space and we walked it off. It was a lot of fun. We wanted to keep it simple, right? And we walked it off. Well, if I have somebody standing here getting coffee, I'm gonna have to have enough space for the other person to come through the door and another person to get their cream or sugar or whatever. So yes, the person that really was helping me with my decisions was one of the coffee roasters that was here at Winchester Coffee Roasters, and now Winchester Coffee Roasters is owned by Sam of Lone Oak. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lone Oak, right across from, there is a roastery in town. If anybody has any coffee curiosities, there is a roastery right here in town. You can go and see the process from green to roasted coffee. It's called Lone Oak. But the previous owner was one of the biggest designers. And it's very simple. The only thing we had to build was a counter.
Yes.
And then we filled in around it. Yeah.
Because some of y'all maybe don't understand the process of coffee, but yeah, the bean right off of the tree is not ready to be consumed. So it does need to be roasted, and there's a process behind that. So
Yeah. It's actually the seed. The bean is actually seeds in a coffee cherry. So,
yeah. It comes from all over the world.
Yep.
All right, next question. Izzy.
Do you use like coffee beans for your coffee, or do you use like a powder or something else?
No, we use beans and we grind fresh. Yeah. So our coffee is roasted at Ceremony Coffee Roasters in Annapolis, Maryland, and we get it fresh every week. It's roasted to order.
Okay. Then, is the coffee like a pretty high quality?
I would say so. Yeah. It's a very good flavor. It's very fresh. Yeah. It's so on coffee. There's 2 different types basically. There's Robusto, which is a cheaper coffee, which is a lot of your Maxwell Houses and your canned Folgers and all that kind of stuff. The next level, the coffee trees are grown at higher elevations. They're shaded, they're organic, they're very protected. They're called Arabica beans. So it's like I used to say it's the Cadillac of coffee beans, but now I'll say it's the Tesla. How's that? It's a very high quality bean, but every tree only yields 1 pound of coffee. So when you all are into coffee drinking and you have your first cup of coffee, appreciate the cost, how cheap it is when you think about where it goes from seed to cup.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Latin America, South America,
Yeah.
those are the places where you usually find most of
Yeah,
coffee growers.
in between the tropics. It has to be, coffee can only be grown, it'll never be grown in the United States unless our climate continues to warm. It's grown between the tropics, so it needs to be grown in a tropical climate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always thought too it'd be cool to create some artificial environment. Say buy like 100 acres and then create facilities where you could grow the coffee trees inside. That'd be a cool operation. That way you could source from America, but
Yeah, and that may be our future, a hydroponic type situation where it's greenhoused or whatever.
yeah, we like money, economics. Let's go.
Yeah, the 2 gentlemen that escorted me said that's what you're talking about, how to make money.
We got to
I said, what are you doing in your civics class? Yeah, we're learning how to make money.
We learn about the government structures too, so don't let them lie to you.
Well, they did say politics.
Good.
So.
What is the average amount of customers that you usually get per day?
Per day, it's really risen. It's after the pandemic, shockingly, we're doing better than ever. We get probably 100 to 150 customers a day. Yeah, and we have a lot of regulars. We'll have 6 or 8 people that are waiting on the patio, you know, or waiting outside the fence when we're ready to open in the morning.
And you open at what time?
We open at 8. We're
Yeah.
open every day.
I would
Yeah.
be there every morning if you opened earlier. I told you that long ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, when I'm driving through, she's not open yet. But
Yeah.
but that's
Including Sunday?
Even Sunday, yeah.
Really? Oh.
So that you were talking about products that I've had and have had to no longer have. Hours too. When you have your own business, you're going to adjust your hours based on your community.
Yep.
We were open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, but we don't get the traffic.
and you have to, and that's where you keep track and you look back on your statistics. Even at Starbucks, we would find out when more people were coming, so we would have more people working at those times. Because humans, they have patterns, so you have to pay attention to those patterns.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Last question. Is it hard to run the business, like a business?
I don't think it's hard if you've done your homework. You know, like Mr. Davis said, I had the great opportunity of learning. You know, I worked for Daily Grind corporate office for 3 years and learned a lot about. I was on the sales team, so I had to help the franchisees know what to do to get their business set up. So I learned a lot and took that with me. It's a little, I'll be honest with you, it was a little scary for me when it came to tax time. You know, we pay a lot of taxes, we pay city taxes, you know, we pay federal taxes, we pay state taxes, we pay employee taxes, and that's the most frightening
Civic
thing
duty.
to me. Yeah, civic
Duty,
duties,
yeah.
exactly. You know, that was the most difficult part because I had a fear that I was gonna miss a tax payment and be penalized for it. It is 24/7. It is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. If you own your own business, you are never detached. So sometimes that's a little difficult, but the times that I've had difficulties or questions, I have gone to my resources. I've gone to the coffee roasters if I've had equipment questions, or gone to my accountant if I've had tax, concerns. You know, so when you do that, when you come under that umbrella, you try to put people in place that are gonna be helpful to you if you need it.
And
Yeah.
it goes back to community. You rely on your
Yeah.
community. Don't be an isolated individual.
Yeah. And talk to other, if you do go into small business, talk to your other small business owners. You know, what did you do about this? You know, how do I handle this situation? Yeah.
So if we had, because I've shown these kids stocks for a while, if we had to look at your profits or your revenue over this time in terms of rising like a stock, would it look like this gradual, or would it be up, down, and then working its way? Like, how would it be? Has it been kind of gradually increasing like you said, or has it been cyclical where it's going up and down in terms of profits?
It's been gradual. It's been a very, very slow gradual. That's why I tell you too to follow your heart, because you gotta love what you do. Because there's not a lot of money in a coffee ring, in a $2 ring. So it's been very gradual. Something happened after the pandemic. We closed for 2 months. Didn't know if we would be able to reopen. We had invested private money, we had taken loans, and we had gotten some government assistance, because when you close and you have no income, you still have bills to pay, right? So something happened though, and I credit this to our community. After the pandemic, I really believe that the mentality of consumers is how important it is to support local. I mean, your schools were shutting down and everything. If we didn't have tax money coming in, tax revenues coming in, look at what would have happened. And those tax revenues are coming from all of this local that you have here. Local supports local, right? Your local taxes support your schools. So I think the mentality changed after that, where people saw the real, true importance. Everybody's happy to be out, but they're also seeing the importance of what it means for local to support local. And so our numbers, we are having every month is a record-breaking month. Better than the last, better than the last, better than the last. So.
And population increases too, with Winchester
Yes,
being a place where
definitely.
people want to come, that helps businesses, because more people equals more customers.
Right.
So,
And you do have you are gonna have your slower months, and you know that. You know, like I can almost see January it's gonna go down again, and then as the weather gets, but we're on a walking mall, right? As the weather gets better, traffic's gonna pick up, we're into the holidays, okay, and then it's gonna slow down again in January. But
patterns.
yeah, patterns, but definite patterns, but definitely a little better than the year before. You always get a little better than the year before.
So there you have it. It's not a get rich quick scheme. So if you think you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow, don't think of another plan. Okay?
Right.
But yeah, that's we're running short on time. But I decided I wanted to do something different with this, because you're the very first person that's ever been between two pines. Right here. Okay?
It's
I got
such
these.
an honor to be
Yeah,
here.
so, and that key that sits right there, all the kids always like grab that thing, or random ones will say, what's this key for? And I've decided I want that key for you to take it and figure out who the next person will be that should come in here and talk to these
Oh,
kids. So that
wow.
way you, like, take your time on it, you don't have to think of it tomorrow. But when you have an idea of who you think would be great to come and talk to these kids, consult them, give them the key, and then let me know their contact info, and that way I can contact them so they can come in here and teach these kids.
All right.
So yeah, that's your homework.
That's my
the
homework.
The teacher's still assigning homework.
See, I'm in school getting homework
It never
assignments.
stops. It never
See?
stops.
Yeah.
So yeah, any last questions? I mean, thank you guys for being patient, for real. Shane?
I mean, like, of all jobs, why making coffee?
Why making coffee? It wasn't about making coffee. It was about providing a community space. My experience at the coffee shops in Italy was every morning when I went in and got my cappuccino after my morning walk, people know you. You know, you could walk in and the barista would know you. The cashier would know you, even though there's coffee shops in Italy on every corner. And they never had to-go cups. In the United States, we are all about to-go. We want the paper, we want the plastic, we want the to-go box. They do everything in ceramic. They invited the community in to sit and relax and enjoy life, and have a cup of coffee or have a cappuccino. Actually, they don't serve black coffee over there like we do. It's cappuccinos and lattes and stuff like that. And so that's what I wanted to try to recreate that. I wanted that community gathering space. I wanted people to be able to come into my shop and leave cares behind, meet friends, sit down, have a cup of coffee, read a book.
Do
so
homework.
It was more, do homework. It was more about that. It wasn't about, the coffee is secondary to serving people.
And guys, if you get the chance, because I put it up there, remember it's near the Hanley Library, that end of the walking mall, right? If you get a chance, just walk in there and you will see what she's talking about. People are in their own little world, talking. Some of them are by themselves, but some of them are having group conversations. It's a magical place. So, and it's like everybody's got their own little simultaneous like vibe going on within. So she really has, what you envisioned has happened. So,
Oh,
and thank you for taking your time to come in here and talk to us, because that's huge.
I really appreciate it.
Also, will you keep working when you're 60 or older?
I am already in my 60s. I am at retirement age, yes. I'm almost 66. So, do I want to keep working? I'm not ashamed to hide that, because I am working. I have retirement in the back of my mind, but I don't know what my timeline will be. I'm going to go as long as I can go. Probably another couple of years.
Day by
Yeah.
day.
Day by day, yeah. And if I could say, I would love for you all, if you want to come in, I mean, you're asking about grinding coffee, making coffee, stuff like that. we can set up something for you where I'll show you exactly what we do, pull you behind the counter and show you exactly what we do. If you're ever interested in that, please reach out. I would love to do that with
You
you.
can either do that through me or you can literally go in and talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in that, talk to me or just go into her shop.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
It's been an honor. Best wishes for you in your life, all of you.
Yeah. And hey, can you take a picture real fast while you're at it?
I was gonna ask
It's
you.
recorded, but yeah, here it is. Yeah.
Are you, if we have a group shot, can we post on Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey kids, yeah, get behind us. Yeah.
Are you guys okay?
Yeah,
with that
anybody
if
who
we
would
post
like to
that?
be in a public photo, stand behind us.
Is it okay
If you
with
want to be.
parents and
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, if you want to be. Kids, anybody who wants to be in a public photo behind the pines. Okay.
Behind the
And
We always have the pines.
is the lighting okay on that? Okay.
I guess so. Behind Mr. Davis doing something special.
Yeah.
I love
It
it.
is. Alright. Watch out. Here we go. Alright. 1, 2, 3. And then, man, take a bunch of them.